Okay, good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. Good morning to those who are joining us live. Good morning to Andy, who is our superstar producer here. Happy Wednesday for those that are with us today live. For those that are joining any other day, happy whatever day it is. Middle of the week. Weeks are flying by. Crazy time that we're living in right now. Incredible opportunities that we have to grow. We started talking yesterday about this idea that we are in this world for a reason. There's a certain amount of interest that we have in being here, and what's happening is when you go through life and we are unsure as to why we do what we do, we end up running the risk of doing a lot of things that don't really satisfy us in the deepest way. One of the greatest risks that we have is this concept that we are living our lives and doing things when they're not really fully satisfying our needs. A great way to know that if we're living this way is this constant need for distraction, this constant need for watching somebody else become great. When you see people that descend into negativity very quickly, there are people like this. It's a constant state of negativity. Everything that they're doing, it's always somehow too hard, too much. There are people that are going through real challenges in life, and they are like, they're just positive. There are people that are not going through a lot. They're really not. I'm sure maybe they grew up in a certain world, but if you look at the basics of their lives, the stuff that they sort of fetch about, that they get upset about, that becomes like a big deal is very small. And they're all amazing people. We're all born with a piece of God. The difference is whether or not a person is in touch with themselves. We spoke yesterday about this idea of needs and how each and every one of us has very certain basic needs. And if we're satisfying those needs, we feel great. And if we're not satisfying those needs, we don't feel great. If you want to understand, and it took me a while to get this, I spent the beginning of my career working in corporate law. And there are a lot of people that love it. To me, it was like jail. It was jail. I mean, sitting in a room. I can barely sit behind the desk. I could barely stand behind the podium. Sitting in a room for the first few years with thousands and thousands of documents. I mean, reading hundreds of, maybe if I would have really got to the end of the line and been able to be the guy that negotiates, fine. But the beginning years of corporate law, and this sense every day you get in and you can't believe where you are, and the buildings are so beautiful and they pay you a lot of money and everything's mahogany, and then you get so much respect for working for these firms, and you went to these schools and everything should be amazing. And then all of a sudden, you feel this sense of, I don't know, I'm empty. It doesn't feel great. And the reason is because you're not satisfying your inner needs. As great as life can look, as great as life can be, as wonderful as it can look on the outside, as perfect as your life can line up on paper, if you're not satisfying your needs properly, you don't feel fulfilled. Research done by Deci and Ryan, the self-determination theory. And if you get it, you can motivate people. If you get it, you can feel differently. If you don't, you can walk around and you can accumulate as much stuff as you need. It just doesn't feel it. And those three basic needs are significance or competence. You have to feel like you're good at something. Connectedness. You have to feel like you're connected to people. You need to have real relationships in your life. That's why you see people sometimes, especially those that make a lot of money young. There are people that make a lot of money young, and they haven't had time to develop relationships, and they wake up one morning and they go, I don't think I have any friends. Because every conversation I have, someone's trying to get something from me, and they sense this emptiness. And they cleave sometimes. You see sometimes athletes like this. You see like an athlete is like a top lottery pick. He's like the center of the world, and he's still hanging out with his friends from high school. Why? Because at least when he goes into that room, those are the guys that like beat him up. There's someone that liked him from before he became successful. And the last thing is autonomy. You have to sort of self-direct your life. We hate being told what to do. We hate being directed around all day. There's nothing more disempowering than a boss comes into an office and says, hey, you guys are working on these things? Listen, do me a favor, just stop what you're doing and let's do this for the next 2 weeks. And they're like, why? Because I said so? It's disempowering. If you don't include people into the plan, they feel like they're just being directed. They don't have control of their own lives. That's why lots of employees live in the world of TGIF. They've resigned the fact that there's no real meaning in work. And they've spent the rest of their lives just hoping for the weekend. Thank God it's Friday. Can't wait for a vacation. And now employers think that just give them more money. They don't get it. Giving people more money and making them feel empty is not getting them more motivated. Maybe they'll do the task, but it's not giving them the heart. What we need to do to figure out together here is how to understand these three needs, how to live in these three needs, how to align these three needs with who you are. And when you start to see your life under the principles of these three core needs, you start to realize that there are things in life that make me feel different. This is the pathway to what we call the autotelic behavior of flow. This is how flow works. So let's delve into them a little bit. And if you ever needed a real proof for this, I wrote this in the book. It was unbelievable when I read this. The most popular, the most profitable part of entertainment that we have in the world today is gaming. Most people think like, what? Who plays games? Kids? No, actually the average gamer, I think, is like mid-30s. I saw a stat that like something like 2 billion hours a week of video games being played. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. I think gaming is larger than the major sports combined in terms of revenue. Why would that be? Why are people spending so much time playing games for? So if you understand how a game works, you'll understand that the reason why we play games is because games actually satisfy our deeper needs. Most people don't spend time thinking about their needs. Most people don't spend time building their lives so that their lives satisfy their needs. So what ends up happening is there's an emptiness. You need to satisfy your needs. So you end up playing games. If you ever look at a video game, or at any game, what you find is they have three basic components. Number one, there's a level of mastery that you have to accomplish. You go board to board. You got to figure things out. You win at boards, and you feel the sense of accomplishment. You score a basket. You score a goal. You win at a game. You are challenged by an opponent, and then ultimately either you win or you lose. But the challenging, the growth, the micro feelings of success through a basket or a goal or a touchdown, the more macro feelings of success by a game, the bigger feelings of success by the playoffs, by the championship, by winning the board, by beating the game. These are all things that are sending dopamine, that are sending excitement into your brain and going, that felt amazing. There are grown men who cry, and women who cry at the feeling of winning a game that somebody made up a few years ago, whose emotions are so connected to it, me included, whose emotions are so connected to it that we don't want to do with ourselves. Why is that? It's because we're using it as a prop for our own needs. There's connectedness in games. You play against somebody. You play with a team. You play with fans. It's you're united in purpose. You see people all the time, they come out of sport, they come out of the army, and they go into work, they go into life, and they can never find themselves because they were once connected in purpose. And the last piece is that there's a certain level of autonomy. You're shot. You win or you lose on your shot. You win or you lose on your team. You choose to play or not to play. There's a certain level of you're opting into this game. You're opting into this board. You're opting into this weapon that you use. You're opting into this pass that you throw. When you understand these three pieces, that's why the world is obsessed with gaming. Myself included. That's why kids need sports if they can play it well. That's why we're looking constantly for competition. It's not because of a ball. It's not because of a bat. It's not because of a video game. It's because what games are doing is games are actually trying to substitute these core needs that we really should be getting out of life. If you're designing your life properly, your life is satisfying so much that you can go and enjoy the distraction for a few minutes, but it's not your life. The games in this world become less important because you're having so much more satisfaction out of life that when you do something that is a synthetic, it feels like a synthetic. If your relationship to your spouse and to your children are so unified that when you go to a team, it's fun when you want to let out some steam, but it's not going to compare to your family. When what you do for a living is gratifying you, even if it's not your full-time job, if what you're doing is engaged in things that are challenging you, you're going to be so excited about doing that every day that when you go and play a sport, as good as sports are, unless you're getting paid for it, that will ultimately end without any real difference. You feel different from it. So how do we do it? Well, that's what we're going to talk about. We got to understand it. Like I said, we got to speak the language. We got to understand the tools. We got to understand what we're talking about. And the beginning of what this is really is each of these needs. And you have to understand that each of these needs don't come from your brain. Your brain's a computer. L'chaim for those that are in their coffees right now. Your brain's just a computer. Your brain doesn't think. Your brain responds. Right? Thought, conscious thought doesn't come from your brain. I mean, it can. It comes from something deeper than your brain. Your brain's a massive computer. Babies don't think. I mean, they think a little bit, but they don't really think. The reason why the baby's thinking is because they've created neuroplasticity. They've created neuroconnections, and those things. Right? You have a computer. Yeah, the computer can run itself, so to speak. It can think the computer, but someone had to program it. This piece of machinery is not going to think. You can have artificial intelligence that thinks, that knows what to do, that reacts. It can update itself every day. You can come to your computer and computer can say all the updates are put in. That's wonderful. But somebody had to program that computer. You, the soul, you are a being above your brain and your body. You are programming your computer called your brain that's delivering the automatic messages to your body. Some of the stuff is pre-programmed, but it's just a computer. So that means if you need significance, you have a psychological need for significance. That didn't come because of your brain. Medicine or doctors may say it did because they don't really have, some of them do, real levels of knowledge of the spiritual world. It came because of your soul. You don't need it because your brain needs a hit of significance. You need it because there's something deeper going on inside you of who you are that is being manifest through your mind. And so when you break down these three pieces, you'll see that these pieces are really spiritual needs. And this is found in spirituality. It's found actually in the depths of the story of Adam and Eve. It's found through the different energies in which God manifests into the world, the masculine energy, the feminine energy. It's found through what's called the Sephirot, which are Kabbalistic concepts that explain how the divine light comes into our lives, where we are, and manifests it. Yeah, definitely. Chassidus. But each of these energies that we have spiritually are actually aligned directly with what goes on psychologically. We're going to learn it from the source. Because what ends up happening is if you don't get it from the source, it ends up getting a little bit of it gets a little bit bastardized along the way. So let's take piece by piece. Every single one of us has within us multiple energies. There's an energy inside us that senses. Now, we each are souls, which means that at our core, who we are is a piece of the divine. You've heard me say this before, I think. Me and you are pieces of divine. That's who we are. We're congealed souls. We can't see it, we can't touch it, we can't see and touch our brain. We can look at it under a microscope. That means that what's generating us, what's empowering us, the reason why we're ticking today is not because we're a sophisticated computer that all the parts fit in and somebody just clicked on a button and off we go. We're clicking today because what's powering us is an energy source that is divine. It is a ray of the ultimate. It's not God himself. It is a ray from divine. You are and I am divine energy. I don't care how religious you feel. I don't care how connected you feel. I don't care your background. I don't even care your religion. If your eyes are open, you are, what you have inside you is more spirituality than you'll ever need for the rest of your life. You never have to become spiritual. You have to reveal spiritual. Period, end story. That's how it works. That is the core of who we are. How much physical we'll put on top of us, that's our business. How much we'll gear our minds around going after things that are physical, that's up to us. How much we want to block the rays that come inside us, that's up to us. You could sense it when you walk into a room when somebody is living with more of their soul. They just feel differently. When someone has conditioned themselves to be a walking, I don't want to say this word, but basically a walking, talking, thoughtful, thinking animal whose only goals in life is winning and beating and eating and indulging, they sense different. When you're around them, you can almost like smell it. See someone whose life is giving and doing and helping, they just feel different. Why? Because they're living with a different part of themselves. But everybody has that. Now, since you have this significance inside you, we also have this energy. The energy that we have is to prove it. Remember, we were first created from dirt. So a part of us comes from Adam. Adam comes from the ground. Adam comes from below surface. So there's a piece of our soul that recognizes that at our core, we're really earthly. And you see this with people, usually men a little more than ladies. The desire for earthly things, desire for lust, desire for food, the ability to walk into a place and stuff oneself until they can't breathe. Where does it come from that a human being wants to eat so much, especially meat? It's like you look at somebody, if you didn't know what was going on, you would see somebody basically like sticking their mouths into an animal and gorging it until they can't breathe. Where does that even come from? Where does it come from looking at people and objectifying other people? How could we objectify human? Where does it come from? Where does it come from cursing at a level where you make people feel terrible, beating each other up? Where do these things come from? They come from our soul. They come from this thing outside us that we come from an earthly place. We come from a place really of in a way where the animals live. We come from the dirt. God could have dropped Adam out of the sky. God could have told Adam, like, here you are, you're an angel, poof, and now you're going to give you a body. And Adam could have floated down like, on a parachute and been like, here I am. Wow. He could have done that. Didn't have to take a little bit of dirt and sketch out a person and bring them up into this world. Why did he do that for? Because that's what makes us angelic, is the recognition that we come from the ground, that the animalistic tendencies are a part of us to some extent, and it is our job to overcome them. That is the core of our need for significance. We want to feel like we're moving in this direction. We're competent. We're growing. We're significant. We're more than just how much I've consumed. there's an internal need to feel like we are elevating ourselves in life. That's a spiritual need. And when you feel it, it feels different. But along the way, you can get the trap. And this is the trap that people fall into. This is the trap we're going to talk about tomorrow. The trap of significance. I'll give you a hint. It's connected to trophies. But until then, once we start getting through our needs in a significant way, we start seeing why we do what we do. Everyone has different energies. Once you start understanding your soul and what you have to accomplish, you'll start to realize that life is either sending you in the right direction or the wrong direction. And then you could take these needs and apply them to your current life and do whatever you're doing, but do so with much greater purpose and meaning. All right, we'll get there. It's going to take a little time, but we'll get there with God's help. All right, thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Have an incredible, incredible day. And with God's help, I cannot wait to see you again tomorrow. Have a great day.